I believe elections should mean something, and that with every kicking out of one group of incumbents and the arrival of newcomers, there should be a thorough cleansing of the administration. And that there should be, I would like to suggest, in the interest of local economy and the free market, there should be a spoils system so that when the new commissioners come in, the old commissioners not only are out, but also all their people whom they brought with them as favorites and friends and neighbors and people needing work who fill the hundreds and hundreds of jobs that are part of county government. And I want you to laugh for a second at the thought, because that's what you're supposed to do, right? You're supposed to think that if you have a spoils system in Hamilton County, that you would have all kinds of incompetent people holding office, doing jobs, some that are technical, and you would have just lousy government that is beholden to the office holder. All the people in those lower offices in the administration, in the agencies and whatnot, would be beholden to the person who gave them the job, and would certainly be incompetent, because he would just put people in there who need the work and who have some influence, but who are not really competent in managing wastewater plants or handling a zoning issue or what have you. Well, that is of course the danger that is seen in having the spoils system, which we don't have anymore. We don't have the spoils system in our country. And at the county commission this morning, there was a hearkening back to the benefits of the spoils system, which has been, of course, replaced by civil service and protection of all county employees, all city employees, and of course state employees and federal employees. Civil service protections, which protect all except those at the very top. Those are, of course, political appointees at all levels of government, and however far away and remote those sources of power are. The top levels are appointees, and almost at the top on down, people are protected. And the county, this is David Toulis, and the county commission this morning came back to discuss you might say a remnant of the spoils system, which used to be one of the benefits of American local government, one of the benefits that made local government responsive. Think just for a second about the idea of an election. When you have an election, the other party's guy gets thrown out for corruption or for inefficiency or for non-responsiveness, and the new man who promises to do better, who promises to be honest, and who promises to be just and fair, he brings people in he believes are competent, whom will serve him in his desire to please the public, right? To please his district, to please the voters. He will bring in the best people. Why? So he can get reelected, right? He will bring in the best people to serve the public, to serve the interests of the most people, or to serve, if not the most people, to serve the interests of those who make the most noise. And he will stand a better chance of maintaining his place in office and providing a public service. That's the spoils system that we don't have anymore. Now, the remnant of the spoils system was referred to today by Randy Fairbanks, and even given some support, if you will, by Jim Coppinger, the mayor. And this is David Toulis. I do thank you for tuning into the program today. The number to call in is 800-8949, 800-8949. And two men on the commission had, you might call it a spat today at the county commission meeting in the old county courthouse. On one side were those two, and on the other, there was Randy Boyd and Greg Martin. And if you'll give me leave, I'd like to tell you kind of what their positions are and let you decide for yourself where you would be, so you can see whether or not I'm right on my general premise about having or not having, as the case is today, discretionary funds given from the main budget pie or pile to individual commissioners to spend as they will, right, at their discretion, at the schools in the district, in certain neighborhoods, or maybe a park, or maybe there's a service center or some social benefit that the commissioner has in view that he thinks among his people, right, the people who elected him, that will be the best allocation of a pot of money, which has limits. And I'm not remembering now how much or how many, tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars were in those discretionary accounts that went with each commissioner's office. That we don't have that anymore. And the argument today before the county commission was on the point of what happens if you don't have those funds. And what came up was a proposal by Chester Bankston. Chester Bankston in his district has had a request that came before the commission, and it was for a press box at a sports venue at a school in his district. Now, I didn't make note of the school, but not that it really matters. And so it was for $182,000, and it was deemed to be unsafe. Now, the chairman of the commission, Sabrina Smedley, insisted that all things we have should be safe. There should be personal safety assured at every location where there's a county owned or county operated structure or facility. So that was clear. Okay, no one was going to dispute that. But the argument came up today, again, as I suggest, touching on the larger question of having entrenched bureaucracy or having a more responsive government. And Randy Fairbanks let's say he took one side. Now, here, let's just quickly explain how the argument went. First, there was a discussion about this press box, and the objection came from Greg Martin, whose main argument seemed to be or was that we have a budget process, and he said, quote, we ought to be methodical about it, and looking to the larger view, and I would say espousing, as it were, the problem that we have in the current system. We should do things that benefit everyone, because in other words, this press box in the school in this man's district across the dais was not benefiting everyone. And Greg Martin, disagreed with the process of having things sort of pop up before the commission, and not be voted on. And what about all these other people with requests? Don't they all have to kind of be shepherded together? That is the position of Greg Martin. He disagrees. He said he disagrees with the process, and he said it's nothing personal. It's not his objection is not to the benefits of a press box that won't collapse on an overweight reporter, right? Judy Walton from the Times Free Press will not be among those people who might fall through the old clapboard in that press box, since she's retiring, and did get some hearty commendations from the county commission today. Well, she won't be there, but Greg Martin said it's not personal, and he's not against the idea of having a solid framed press box at that school. He just disagrees with the process of things sort of popping up as he I don't think he said popping up. He didn't use that word, but that was kind of the idea that he sort of said, firing at Mr. Bankston's proposal. And then joining Greg Martin is Tim Boyd. Now, Tim Boyd is the taxpayer watchdog, and it's a role that I think suits him naturally, and is one that he does very well. He's a very intelligent man, and he is looking at the whole of the county's expenses. And so his objection to this particular measure was that well, what about all these other things? So he's the one who used the word pops up. He said, when this pops up, I cannot support it. That's his quote. It needs a more thorough process, he said. This is not the way we do business, he's telling Chester Bankston. And Tim Boyd is very clear, and what he says, you might say, could be heard as being a rebuke and being sharp. I don't think, of course, that's his intention. But he urged Chester Bankston to withdraw this motion for $182,000 from a press box. And he says he didn't want the press box, quote, taking precedence over every other thing we need. So you see, these two men are taking the larger, they're taking the larger perspective. And well, if we have to vote for this insular and secular and sectional object, right? This press box is insular and secular, and not secular, but insular, and it's very loco-centered, right? It's very small. It doesn't affect the whole county. It just affects one district. It's a benefit for one district. And Tim Boyd asked Mr. Kaiser, the finance head of the county, well, how's this going to be paid for? And Mr. Kaiser said, well, it would be part of a bond issue, which means, of course, it would be financed. It would be debt. So here now you have a proposal for a press box renovation that to make it safe by Chester Bankston, and there's an attack by Greg Martin on the process. Then there's a kind of an attack on the smallness of the narrow-mindedness, if you will, of the petition by Tim Boyd, also county commissioner. But there's another side. Okay, the other side is from Randy Fairbanks, who is a CPA, and I think relatively new on county commission here in Hamilton County. And my name is David Toulis. The number to call is 800-8949, 800-8949. If you want to get in on the show, there is also news, of course, on the city council front. Last night, the city council meeting lasted 19 minutes. And I took occasion on our Facebook page on FB to lament the rapidity and the brevity of the city council meeting. Now, I know that earlier that afternoon at 1, there had been a meeting between David Roddy, the chief of police, and county and city council members. And Marie Mott had a lot to say about that. I'm pretty sure at 11. By the way, we do have Marie Mott. She is back in town. And if life in Chattanooga is boring, well, we've got Marie back. And so things will be hopping again with her very controversial analyses on many points. That is Marie Mott every weekday here at 11 o'clock. And my name is David Toulis. And Marie, I'm gonna just trust that she covered this. She covered this meeting with David Roddy, though I believe she was still on her way back from Washington. And so those things are in the news. And also, I did take the city council's time for 5 minutes, since city council does not pay attention to what the press has to say about it. I have a lot to say about city council, and I think that they don't know what those things are because they don't subscribe, as you probably should, to Nuganomics.com, my press platform. That's Nuganomics.com. Do be a subscriber and learn how things unroll or maybe unravel here in Chattanooga. Things are, I would say, not unravel, and I don't want to be dismissive of the gains and progress in Chattanooga. We are a city which is in reform. It is a reforming process. We just have to ask ourselves how long and how slowly that will be going. I think Chief Roddy was suggesting that he wants to make reforms to avoid people such as Federico Wolf being beaten again, as he was by in public, full of profanity by his officer Ben Piazza. And I don't know if you saw my headline at Nuganomics.com, which is a straight-laced press platform, if there ever was one. And it was a loaded Piazza meat, cheese, steel, and knuckle. That was my headline when the Piazza story broke. Broken by the TFP, by the way, and Zach Peterson. Good job for the paper on this topic, which tends toward reform, right? If we have reporting on these topics, it will tend toward reform. Now, the dispute before the county commission had on two sides. Had two sides. You've got Tim Boyd and Greg Martin on one side, and here now is
number one, Commissioner Martin. Yes, that was true. That those statements were made.
Mr. Fairbanks.
They took the discretionary money out of the budget. I think that's before you came on. But let me address one other thing. This is very, very interesting, and I'm just trying to understand. When I finally understand where you're coming from, maybe I can work under your rules. Everything ought to go through the budgeting process. We shouldn't have this stuff come up in the middle of the year that we address. And I believe I hear you say that's your belief. I've got a resolution before me dated September the 19th, 2018. If you'll bear with me, let me read this resolution. Resolution number 918-18, a resolution authorizing Hamilton County to commit $100,000 annually for 3 years beginning in FY 2018. Listen close.